Okay. Well, I was going to say something about when Laura gets here. Let's not pick on her, but.
Go ahead.
Not on camera.
All right. I will make a motion to accept the minutes of November 28th and December 5th.
All right, it's been moved and I'll second it. It's been moved and seconded to accept the minutes of November 28th and December 5th. During discussion. Seeing none, all those in favor?
Aye. I guess I abstained.
You were here November 28th, weren't you?
No.
Oh no, that was 2 weeks in a row. Right. It's all blending together.
That was the false number, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I bet it.
Okay. Travis, you're up.
Oh, great.
We're talking, at the last meeting we talked about and I think I briefly told you on the phone, about the issues with the roof. I do have the fire station roof, we do have some pictures that Travis was down there looking, a couple weeks ago, maybe now, a week ago.
Yeah, maybe last week, I think.
So Tom snapped some pictures of what's going on, but I'm going to let him tell you what he thinks is going on after you guys look at the pictures.
Pretty much know what's going on.
Yeah, it was put on terribly, and when any wings come up, they're just blowing off. So you can see in the photos there, I can stand there and lift up sheets as big as this table just by myself, and if I had my guys on each side of me, we'd continue that whole. I nailed a few back in, they were blown off and probably 15 feet from where they came from. And the whole roof's doing that.
Are they misnailed or just not nailed at all?
They're misnailed. It's a laminated shingle, so you've got a 3/4 inch strip where you have to hit, then there's actually a nail line there, and that is for high wind areas, and it's a laminated shingle, so if you don't hit that, the bottom, eventually all the bottoms can slide out because they're just going to come unglued.
Nice.
But they've nailed them high. On the whole roof, anywhere I've been, I haven't seen a single nail on the nail line. And so they're basically, if you nail above that, you hit like a little bit of an air pocket. I don't know if they had their gun set too high or if it was,
Goes right through.
or whatever, but it just blew through. It's basically like nailing down a Dorito, and they're just, it's bad, really bad. And it's all over. I mean, and basically you should be able to look down the rows like this floor, and it can be pretty straight, you know.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing.
And there's that much of a dip.
It's amazing.
Probably almost 3 whole rows. It just, they didn't snap any lines.
Was it primarily on the back side or the road side?
The side facing the road and south, that big slant right there, that's really bad right there. The opposite side of that is also pretty bad. The roof, the square section facing north isn't quite so bad. I don't know if they had different crew members on that side. They did a better job there, but I didn't go and look to see if there was any, if they were high nailed there. That may not be getting quite the wind hit that.
It doesn't get sun on it either so much, so.
Right, yeah.
Between the wind and the sun.
But it's bad. I mean, the whole roof is pretty.
Now, does that have ice and water underneath all of it or any of it or no?
I would imagine there'd be some great ice and water on the bottom, at least for 3 or 6 feet, I would think. But definitely up in the field where the shingles were missing, it was just, it was only 15-pound felt paper. Yeah, it's 15. It's just like toilet paper, basically.
Exactly.
It's terrible. And on the photos there, you can see where they're all just kind of sliding right out, where they've been ripped up and just sliding. And they're, you can see those, right, Scott, where they're just kind of come along and they just drop down an inch or two. The shingles just blowing up and like this. It's terrible.
So one of the things I didn't know, because I went back through minutes to see what the discussions were about the roof when the discussions first came up, and I guess I didn't know what you knew, Josh, about, because there was some stuff about some correspondence maybe with the shingle manufacturer, and there wasn't anything really that I could find with a discussion between the installer of the shingles. So I don't know if they were ever contacted.
Yeah, well, the general contractor was contacted. The installer of the shingles was out of business, I think was the rumor anyway at the time. Delayed.
Sorry about that.
That's okay. Was it painful?
No,
Good.
it's really pleasant.
You know, I mean, basically the general contractor said that he would,
We're just talking about the roof, and he's updating what he remembers that went on.
I mean, the general contractor said that he would take care of problems that occurred. But at the time, we had a significant discussion about whether there should be some sort of legal action taken too. And, you know, the problem is the further we get away from construction time, the less likely we are to prevail with something like that. But if it was misnailed all along, I don't know. I mean, I think, I can't remember exactly what.
You can see the holes right there.
Oh, I know. No, I mean, you know.
Yeah, I mean,
I've
that
seen.
doesn't seem to be much of a question that, you know.
Yeah, no, there's no question
What
about
the
it.
issue.
Those are just big sections. I walked over and they just laying there. That one right there, I just slid right out and picked it up and put
No,
it
I
back in
know.
and threw some nails right in it and said, I don't
That's
know.
all you can do for right now, yeah.
The whole roof's like that. It's here, it's there, all over the place.
The last discussion I see about it was that Salmon and Nostrum could not represent, because there was a question
Oh,
about,
that's right, a
because
conflict of
there was
interest.
a conflict of
That's right.
interest, but
Yeah.
then we were still gonna call Richard Couton in, and that never happened. That was the last thing I see about that. So I didn't know if we contacted another attorney, or should I pursue Westfield and talk to them again? I just don't know where to take it, or should we get estimates on?
Well,
I don't know.
we had a ballpark from Travis, which I can't remember now. It was I want to say mid-40s.
Something like that. I've got it written down somewhere in my paperwork at home, and that was just a quick figure that I do at normal price.
Right.
I said that, you know, if it's something you guys want me to do, or very serious, I
You would
could
relook at it, yeah.
Was that for the whole?
That was for the whole thing.
I was say, for some reason, Tom had it in his head that was a one side, for one side.
No, that was for doing the
Okay.
whole thing, because eventually, even the side that's still
Right.
good, it's gonna happen. And the two big slants that come into the valley, that are the east and west side, they're, by springtime, you're gonna just have some serious problems.
Yeah.
Without a doubt. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think that
I'm surprised it's not
I don't
leaked.
remember what the notes reflected, but the minutes reflected, but, you know, I think we figured that, you know, sort of a ballpark of $50,000 was a safe assumption.
Yeah.
You know, that gave us a little bit of padding over what Travis had told us. And, you know, whether we would put it out to bid or how we would approach it. But, you know, the question is, and then part of the discussion last time around also was, what do we do about the insurance? You know, because it's pretty clear that if we had the wrong weather event, it would be pretty catastrophic. And our insurance would presumably cover that. But, you know, now that we sort of have clear knowledge of it and it's recorded that we haven't, you know, done anything other than patch it up, I'm not so sure they would cover it. And Chris did not have that discussion with the insurance, as I recall. So, you know, I think it's a question of whether we try and do some sort of an insurance claim or whether we try and do legal action or what we do.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and a lot of it came up during the discussion of when I was working on the capital plan, if we're going to need to shift things around a little bit to talk about some roof repair. But I mean, I don't mind putting a call into Westfield, but I didn't know how far we had taken it with them, if we felt like we took it to the point where we could.
Well, they have come and fixed it each time that a significant number have come off, because a significant number have come off on at least 2 occasions. And
There's
they
no
came-
repairing that roof, I can tell you that.
No, I know. No, I mean, they came and sort of repaired, it was a couple sections like you're holding there. One time it was 5 or 6, I think. There was quite a few. And they came and re-nailed it and so on and so forth. But, right, no, we're not assuming that you've got much to work with there.
I mean, plus, besides the roof, there's this other question of the pieces on the trim.
All the rake trim, the aluminum
Yeah,
trim, yeah.
that's an issue too.
Yeah, that's just
Okay.
blowing away and some of it's just totally missing. It's like, you don't
Yeah.
even know where it went to.
Right.
So,
And I'd given a price for that, and I told Tom that, I'd given him what I estimated an hourly rate and how long I thought it would take, but I think it'll go quite a bit faster than that too, and I had told him that.
yeah.
Especially if you have the roof off it, when you don't have.
Well, that's not really an issue because it's not nailed up underneath, it's just
Oh,
nailed
is
right in
it?
the face.
Oh, I assume
Right in the field, so you-
it doesn't have the flange on it.
No, it just slid up underneath the drip edge and just nailed with tiny little sliding nails, which is fine, that's what you do, but,
Not enough of them or something.
not enough. And plus it doesn't have enough of a lip, so all the soffit trim that they got into the vent and stuff, it's all just falling out.
Right.
So, I gave them to bend it a couple inches underneath, so that stuff isn't falling out.
Actually,
Yeah. And, probably, I'm gonna say probably a third of it was basically renting a man lift, so we can get around that and just work off, and it should go pretty fast, but
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah, so I guess for me, I just need direction for, do you want me to go to Westfield? Is it worth it? Do I talk to the lawyers again? Are we past that? I don't know.
I mean, I think the problem with Westfield is basically what he's going to say is, we'll fix it when there's a problem. Although he may not anymore. I mean, what's it been since that fire? We're pushing.
2006, right? Yeah,
right.
that's what I figured out. I mean, I don't mind calling them and see what they say. They might
Right.
hang up on me, I don't know.
Yeah, no, they probably won't. I mean, I think they've been pretty responsive so far, but, the problem is, and this is the discussion we had before, is that it's not
It's not fixable.
Right, exactly.
It needs to be-
No, it's just
Mandating it.
replaced,
Right.
yeah.
Yeah, that's the
Yeah.
bottom line.
So,
And I don't want to jump in and try and get work for myself, but my opinion is, they did this in the first place, and who's to say that they're not going to do anything better? I mean, that's atrocious work, if you ask me.
Yeah.
yeah.
We did a job for Josh, and we snapped a line, and we were 2.5 inches out, and my guys did it all in one thing, and those guys ate their time, and we went back, and they did it for free, and if they did that kind of work right there, they'd be fired immediately.
Well, I'm assuming it wasn't Westfield that did the work,
No,
right?
it wasn't.
Was a
It was
subcontractor.
somebody out of Peter.
So my assumption would be they would be hiring somebody.
They were the same
But I
people.
mean, I understand what you're saying.
They were the siding and roofing crew, and they were
Right.
slackers.
And I-
Definitely,
I think the other reality is that,
pulling his hair out with them.
yeah, I mean, unless Westfield agrees to replace it, which I would be amazed, I mean, I would think they would at this point, I don't know, then it's gonna come to a legal
That's what I think it's going to
dispute.
work out too.
So, as far as the capital plan is concerned, do we go ahead and do it? I mean, that should be a minimum, 20-year roof probably? One of those,
I mean,
right.
it's a 30-year shingle, so.
It is, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, you can't even get anything on a 30-year. And ICO now considers they went from 30, then they upped it to 35 just a few years ago, which that probably is in that zone. And then now that same shingle, they consider it a limited lifetime, which I don't know exactly what that means, but.
But it should be a 20-year, I mean, it's not a hot roof or anything,
They
so.
sheet that roof with plywood or with ABS?
I don't know because the felt paper's there and
Right.
he said it's not leaking, I wasn't gonna go cut it. I paper and see what's under there.
I'm trying to.
But the nails are holding, it's not like the nails are ripping out, that's for sure.
Right.
If it was always
More a
me.
case of punching through.
Oh, yeah, I mean, there's literally
They just
a
missed-
section the size of this
they missed
table,
the strip, yeah.
or 3 times as big, and then 10 feet over, there's another one, and 5 feet down below that, there's another one, and it's everywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, if I went there, you all stood down there, and I walked around, my guys looked at you'd be
Yeah.
kind of
So
freaking out, I guarantee it.
I'll make a call to them and just I just didn't want to do it without getting all the information of the history of it and where we're at with it, and not, say something to them that we've already said, so. I mean, and then we'll have to have the discussion during the budget discussion of
How we're going to handle it.
how we're going to handle it.
Right.
And in the meantime, I can try to see what,
Yeah, and I think
Action,
that,
Contact another lawyer.
Well-
Because of the conflict.
you should touch base with Richard maybe and see what because I don't remember. Was
Have him
that
catch
the
me up on
firm or him personally, or I don't remember.
it was the entire firm, so my guess is maybe they were representing them in a different case or something. So, I don't know, I'm totally speculating, I have no
Right.
idea, but maybe at this point they're not, or, we can always find out from another firm what they think.
Yeah.
And I haven't, when they came in and talked to me about the insurance, although at that point I didn't even really realize the extent of it, so I haven't said anything to the insurance company, which I probably should have a conversation with them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, I think that would be reasonable at this point to say we have a problem.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, who knows if you can rub it off on wind damage or what, I mean,
yeah,
That is
although
possible,
if it's improperly nailed.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And we've been aware of it for several years, so.
Even nailed right, that should be hurricane nailed, because it's such a flat surface that the wind just
Grabs it.
ramping up
Yeah.
and really grabbing that being such a long exposed roof.
Which is just a few extra nails per
You
shingle.
basically nail your normal 4, and then you add 2 more to the center, about 2 inches apart, so basically
Right.
6 nails,
Yeah,
just for that purpose.
yeah,
Does that
Yeah.
sound like a plan for right now?
yeah. That's it for you.
That's it?
Go
I
ahead.
go eat. All right.
Have a big old,
You guys enjoy.
You can.
So, did you do Travis Lee?
Yes,
I'm Allison Hayes.
yes. Yeah, how you been? Good.
so, I don't know, Brian, maybe you're gonna be able to leave too.
Cool. Enjoy.
Brian was here to talk about Pierce Road. We invited Stephen, Stephen wanted to come to the meeting and sent him an agenda and told him we were talking about it, and so that's why Brian's here, but
Could we just get a little background since Brian is here? I was just curious as to what he's ultimately looking to do over there. Other than just put that culvert in?
Have you guys, I didn't thoroughly read minutes because I wasn't
Okay.
here, so did you guys have further, we talked about it,
I
about
think the
him wanting the
last,
culvert 4 meetings ago.
right, and the last time I talked to you guys was after I had sent him the letter,
Right.
saying that it was a legal trail and that the town was not going to, you got a copy of that, I think.
Yeah.
He came in and talked to me, and I don't know I think that was after that meeting that I told you guys that. And yeah, he's looking to put a culvert in there and have
Right.
some gravel, he wants it graded and all of that to get in and out of there. When he got the letter from me, he came in and talked to me, and he basically, maybe I did tell you guys, because that's when he told me that he was thinking about suing us for what I couldn't really get from him, I don't know. So that's when he wanted to talk to you guys, and Brian's been out there, but I don't think you've actually talked to him.
No, I haven't
personally,
actually
no.
talked to him. No.
I directed Stephen to, if he wanted to do any work, to call Brian to make sure that whatever work he was doing was not going to cause a problem for any other residents or for any town property. So that's where we're at. I've heard nothing more from him since that.
What's your impression?
I don't really see the problem with the road. It's like it's been for the last, who knows how long. If anything, it's in better
Is
shape
there a culvert in there now?
now.
No, all
There's
right, so, yeah.
from about, I don't know, 50 feet off of Falls Road on Pierce Road, there's our culvert there, and then from there on, there's nothing up the hill. And
And how much further out is he than that? He's quite a ways.
oh yeah, we probably go out in there I'd say a couple 100 feet.
Yeah.
That's where we take care of. And then
He's
as soon as
several
it
hundred feet past
splits,
that.
there's like 3 driveways, 4 actually, and it starts to go up the hill, and there's basically nothing from there up, so.
And those are all driveways that are actively
Well,
used.
I'm not sure if his is actively used, but there's
Other ones.
at least 3 of them right there. that-
They're not just camps, they're
they're
houses that
full-time
people are living
residents,
in.
I would assume, I mean.
Yeah.
Right, and they're maintained by the owners and
Yeah.
kept up.
Yeah.
Or it's an association.
I mean, we have gone up in that road before and put some cutouts in just because there was nobody living up there and taking care of it, so we just put them in just to take care of ourselves.
Yeah.
But besides that, it's,
Right, so basically the way it stands is if he wants to improve the road, we're not impeding him from expending his resources to improve that road, as long as he meets with us and with Brian and gets approval, but it doesn't impede our usage of the road, and the town trail is not a town-maintained road, plain and simple.
And
And he-
emergency equipment can get in and out of there if they need to, which was a concern that, you know. it
Did that
was-
go all the way through?
yeah.
There was, because at one time, wasn't there some rocks put in there so people wouldn't drive all the way through?
I think there was up on the top side, because there's 2 houses up on the top side that they access from
Right.
Route 5.
I think Kim lived there. I think
Yeah.
Bill maybe put
Yeah.
some rocks in there so people wouldn't drive up and down.
And then I'm not sure whether they got told they couldn't put them there because it was a legal trail or what the deal is, but.
There was some comments made by Stephen when he was in here about the house that is above him and the drainage and where it was when it was built. It was, you know, there was something with the septic system, and he alluded that he wanted the town to get involved in that, and I said that's a civil matter at this point between you, and if you think there's a problem with what's happening on his property, that's going, so that's between you and him. And they got a permit. They have a wastewater permit from the state, so, you know, I told him he needs to fight that out between him and his neighbor if he thinks there's something going on, or he needs to call the state, so.
And the culvert he wants to put in is to go under the trail, or is it to go along his drive?
I believe it's to go
Parallel to-
under the trail is the way I
Yeah.
understood it. But I
I
don't
would
know that
assume.
for sure.
I mean,
He doesn't need
He
a
could do it.
culvert, he doesn't need a culvert where his driveway meets the
well,
road.
I mean, if it was my house, I would put one in,
Probably have one, right.
but technically not being off a town road, we can't tell him that
Right.
he has to put a culvert in there,
Yeah.
so. But as far as the FEMA stuff goes, I mean, there was no damage done to that thing. I mean, Hurricane Irene, we probably put out 5 or 6 loads of gravel for the whole thing. I mean, we didn't have any damage in town to speak of, so.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, well, and that's
I don't
the other
think
thing, I
anything-
told him the discussion about the FEMA money and what they're doing he's doing with FEMA is between him and FEMA.
And I can't remember, he wanted us to sort of ratify that
That there was
claim on
damage
his
during
part.
Hurricane Irene. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. So that's where we're at with it. I mean, I left it with him very clear that we were not doing any maintenance on the road. He said he wanted to come talk to you guys. I sent him a copy of the agenda. Granted, I sent it yesterday in the mail in the morning, but I assume he read it on Monday. Huh? Read it on Monday. Yeah. So we'll see what we hear. But
Yeah,
that's where we're at.
good.
Okay, you can go.
Well, you can stay. You don't have to
I told
go.
him that Westminster road forming comes to every single select board meeting.
Really?
Yeah.
Yikes.
Yeah. Doesn't have much going on there.
I don't know. I told him it might be a requirement.
It's everybody's keeping an eye on everybody in Westminster, right?
yours.
My full trust is in you guys.
Thank you.
All right.
See ya.
Right, thanks.
Beat this with it.
At the last meeting, 2 meetings ago, I brought up the local rivers subcommittee appointment that Alice had asked to be considered for that. Then it was pointed out to me that we might have already had somebody on that committee. And I did check, and we do, but we can have more than one person. I think we can have 2 people and then as many alternates as we want in the town. So I think if Alice still is interested, you are, right? If we could, if you guys are okay with it and want Alice to serve in that capacity, you could nominate her and I'll send in paperwork. And she can start going to those meetings. Right, Alice?
Would you like my rationale?
We'd be more than happy when anyone wants to step up and serve in these capacities, but certainly if it's...
Well, the Connecticut River dams will be relicensed in more or less 5 years. Maybe 5 and a half, but that was a month or 2 ago. But they had the dam tours from the top all the way down into Massachusetts. And you may recall, and I can't give you the year, that Bellows Falls wanted to purchase the dam in Bellows Falls. And so we're coming up again for relicensing. And TransCanada apparently owns the whole kit and caboodle, and they also own the tar sands. So I just think that local energy is a wonderful thing. And so inquiring through the Wyndham Regional Commission, this committee apparently is the committee that is monitoring what is happening with the dams.
So it's TransCanada being the hydro, is that Hydro-Quebec, is that the same?
No, they are tar sands, not Hydro-Quebec. Well, to tell you the truth, Scott, I don't know all that much about who owns whom. But I don't think they're Hydro-Quebec.
This is really concerning the leases on the dams. The dams remain, they're like some kind of public domain, and then they're leased, turned around and leased out.
You're asking me questions I really don't.
You'll be finding out.
She will be finding out
All I know is that that FERC will be relicensing them in more or less 5 years. And there certainly were numbers of us who really wanted Bellows Falls and to own that, and apparently the then governor vetoed that proposition.
2004 elections, I recall.
Was that what it was?
I'm thinking that's something.
Well, I'll make a motion that we appoint Alice Mays to the local river subcommittee.
I think it's fantastic.
It's a very long, yeah, it is, but this.
That one.
You want the essence. And the essence is...
On this form, it says local river subcommittee, so.
Great.
I will second that.
Okay, it's been moved and seconded to appoint Alice Mays to local rivers subcommittee. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Aye.
There you go.
Go get them.
So the only thing I have tonight under my section is the budget, water and sewer budget. So if you look at the packet I gave you for the water and sewer, the first page shows, this is from the financial statements from our audit. And this is a discussion that's been ongoing with Chris and I for the last few years and with John Budget. looking at budgeting for depreciation, which has never been done in Putney. Each year we have a small line item in the water and sewer budgets, 10,000 I think for sewer, 8,500 maybe for water, which is, the purpose of that is to be reserved for future capital expenses or capital. It's not enough because normally what we're doing is spending that money within the year that we've budgeted
On maintenance.
on regular maintenance.
Right.
So if you look down, it's page 17, so we're all on the same. If you look down to the change in net assets, which is the third line from the bottom, you can see that because of the depreciation, which is around 55,000 as an average between the two funds, which is under the operating expenses, because of that, we're in a deficit in both of the funds every year. It's not a cash deficit, it's an operating deficit. So in the water fund, you can see that if we were to back off the depreciation, we don't look too bad. You know, we've got a $25,000 deficit, our depreciation is $58,000. So because that's not a cash out of pocket expense, our cash flow is not too bad in the water fund. The sewer fund, however, is a $60,000 deficit. If we back off the $51,000, we're still running short in the sewer. That's just basic operations with no money being set aside really for maintenance.
And do we have a capital fund for either of these of any significance?
What we've been doing is at the end of the year, we've been kind of analyzing what's been spent out of that 10,000 or the 8,500 in both funds. And if we have any left, we've been calling reserving it.
Right.
But because it's a business, really it's a proprietary fund, so it's a business activity. All we're really doing is just reducing the unrestricted and increasing the restricted, but because we're not making money to really save, it's kind of just a paper thing that's not really working out for us very well. So do we have money set aside? No. We have money in the fund because we have a lot of assets. We don't have a lot of cash.
But those assets are really only assets on paper per se, because they have no real value to us other than.
Right, we're not going to go there. We could liquidate them if
sell
we
them,
want.
right, exactly.
So with all of that in mind, when we look at the budget that I'm proposing for this year in the water fund, instead of putting a capital reserve line of 8,500, which is what we've been doing in the past, I put a $5,000 maintenance line, because that's kind of what we've been spending every year for just general maintenance, but we've been plugging it into that capital reserve. And I put in $15,000 for depreciation. It's not the full amount of the depreciation that we expect to put on paper, but it's at least a start in seeing where we can start saving a little bit more money.
And you nixed the capital reserve altogether.
And nix the capital reserve, because basically what that will do is just build your fund balance.
Because of the depreciation number for depreciation. So you're sort of replacing that with. So you're essentially taking 8,500 and turning it into 20,000, of which ballpark 15 goes into capital reserve. Is that's more or less the theory?
Yeah. Anyway. So it looks like it's a 10% increase between FY13's budget and FY14. But I don't think that we need to raise the rates, because if you look at the top, the two numbers at the top, the user fee and the bond fee, even though the user fees and the bond fees in the revenue section, even though it looks like I'm having to increase the rates and the user fees to come up with the right amount of money to cover the budget, we actually are billing based on what
The usage.
we're billing $133,000 a year already, which is those two numbers added together. So our fees are okay based on this. Our fees are at the right rate right now to cover this budget.
So
You can-
so where was that money supposed to go? If it was, I mean, if we were billing that much, what would have happened to that money if we had
Well, it
been
does-
making that change?
it does go-
Add as
Yeah,
end up
add
as
as surplus.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think the water budget, although I've moved a couple things around and just tried to get this process started of thinking about this depreciation expense and on paper, on this financial statement at the end of the year, we are going to still be in the negative because we still have to book the full 58,000 on paper because that's what we're depreciating on an annual basis. I just wanted to know if we started the process of actually thinking of this as a depreciation expense, are our fees enough right now to cover any depreciation?
Well, and if we're thinking of it as a depreciation expense, what are we doing with it? That would then,
We would
just every
sit there.
year, it would be a surplus every year.
Yeah.
That would build as a capital reserve.
It
Yeah.
is in effect.
So, yeah, so why aren't we calling it a capital reserve? That's just,
Because
Because we're using depreciation to build it?
because in a general, the municipal budget, you're not supposed to be making any money you set aside money for future capital, but in a business environment, it's more, although we don't want to call it a for-profit,
right.
it's treated like that in the financial world. You need to make enough money to sustain it, plus pay for the future.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, we don't book depreciation in the general fund for the town. You just don't do it. You don't budget for it. You don't even think about it because you have a capital plan that covers that. But we're talking such big numbers in the water and sewer that when something breaks, you're not talking.
$4,000.
Yeah. And my fear is that if we don't go this direction soon, we have a 40-year bond, at least in the sewer, right? Is it the sewer? Are they both 40-year? That 20 years from now, if we're not saving a significant amount of money, a bond is going to have to happen again if something big happens. And now you're adding a bond on top of another bond that's sitting there for another 20 years.
Because we just refinanced those bonds,
Yeah,
right? So, and
They are being paid off a little bit sooner,
Right,
but 40 years or 35, I don't know.
right.
So it's really not that much of a change. It's just kind of maybe a change in it's more, I mean, I hear what you're saying, it's just a wording.
Yeah, no, I'm just wondering why,
Yeah.
you know,
Because then the next step in this is that we need to really go through the entire system, both water and sewer, and make sure we're billing people properly.
Right.
Are we billing people fairly? Do we need to do a new rate structure
and is it enough?
discussion? And you know, at that point, if we shift things around and we have discussions on different types of rate structures, maybe we will have enough to cover the entire amount. I mean,
So as that in, 5 years, when that's roughly $75,000, what will we be calling it?
it'll probably be a reserve, like on this, I don't know if I brought that in, but if you look at the financial statements, they'll be unrestricted and restricted.
And
So we can restricted,
it'll basically be a restricted fund that's dedicated to the water
exactly,
system.
yeah.
Okay. And then we'll actually, in theory, we would actually have that cash on hand, is that?
That's the hope, yeah.
And then can that be interest bearing? I mean, can
Yeah, it would
we?
be in a,
It would be.
yeah. I mean, right now, all of our water and sewer money is actually in the general fund, so the general fund's kind of earning all that interest because we haven't really allocated any interest that that's earning over to the other funds, but yes. So,
Sounds reasonable.
so basically it's kind of a shift in how we're looking and naming things in the budget, but the overall budget, although it looks like it's increased a little bit in the user fees, we don't need to increase the rates this year because we are already billing enough to cover those. Okay, so that's the good news. The water fund is the good news. The next page that's in there, there's a, I always have things so organized, and I'm gonna get here, it's just not. There should be something that looks like this in here, but it's the water fund. This is sewer.
This is water and sewer.
Is that after this one?
Those like right
Okay,
there?
yeah, it's after.
Right here.
So this,
Wait, you want the one for the water fund or the
yeah,
sewer?
the water.
Yeah, okay.
Because I just want to show you, the first thing that I showed you was the financial statement and what it looks like as of June 30th, and how it, on paper, we're showing either a deficit or a, the second column over is potentially what it could look like next year with the $15,000 that we're talking about. So instead of, even on paper, even though this is not a cash expense, see how we're increasing it by 26,000. Now the full,
down here, but
so it's just kind of this is what it would look like at the rates that I am proposing this year. And then if we did the full 53,000, we would be short 15. So it's just a comparison of how we can look at it. The one over on the,
This is.
yeah, without raising rates. I mean, and that's what it's probably going to look like because we're gonna have to book the whole 53,000.
yeah, I don't really understand.
You might have to just,
Accept that that's.
well, you might just have to absorb it a little bit. It took me a little while to even,
But how do you
It's just
have
kind
these
of-
two things,
can I see it?
Yeah,
column 2 and column 3 are saying the same thing, but show 2
They're not, the 15,000?
and the 57,
Yeah.
right? But we can't just appreciate it only 15.
Right, that's what it'll look like. We don't actually have that cash expense, so we will be building a little bit of reserve. On paper, it's gonna look, what John's going to give us,
Is
it's gonna
column
be this.
3.
Yeah.
Right.
So if we really wanted to save a significant amount of money, we would have to raise our rates to cover the 57. So that's what it's gonna look like on paper at the end of next year. This is what's gonna be the actual, because we didn't actually spend the,
right. Yes. We didn't
Okay.
spend that 15.
but we will reserve it.
But we will reserve it.
You know the numbers. Let's skip that.
Yeah, no, that's making.
This is the kind of stuff you're supposed to do.
All right, so let's get to the not so good news.
All right, oh, there's more.
Something to look forward to.
Well, the first question I have is, the capital replacement
What do you
plan
want? You want this
for
one?
sewer, yeah. I didn't do anything with this because this came straight off of what was in the book last year, because I'm a little confused we are not doing anything with the headworks, is that correct? Just the chemical feed building?
Well, yeah, well, I mean, we're not doing anything with that until we have some resolution of awaiting a new.
Right, it's just that it's, I don't know, that's a question. I can't remember I thought there was discussion that the headworks were not gonna happen. Am I remembering that wrong?
Because of the expense. Or
Yeah. Or that they had done something that
well,
made
they
it,
added oxygenators, right? Which
Yeah.
increased the efficiency, I think.
all right, so do I just need to double check with Joe?
Probably.
All right. I just didn't know if I should keep that 75,000 in the capital budget for next year or not.
Well, that's for the chemical, oh no, that's for the headworks.
That's for the headworks.
Well,
I mean, the problem
if our chemical building is gonna cost us twice as much as we thought it is, then maybe we just move that up a line and,
Yeah, I don't know that it is now because we've got.
no,
yeah.
I know,
Yeah.
but,
I mean, I guess because if we need to borrow money, which we have a borrowing authorization from the voters.
Right.
Then I need to increase the sewer budget for whatever the borrowing is gonna be, which is gonna make it even worse. All right, I'll double check with Joe.
yeah,
I might even call Chris about that one.
see
Because
exactly.
it seems like I remember a discussion of that it didn't need to be done now because of, maybe it was what you had just said, that they added the,
It was different, yeah, I can't remember
Okay,
exactly what
alright.
they did, but,
Uh-huh.
I mean, they added oxygenators, which was supposed to increase I think it was oxygenators, but then, because Efficiency Vermont gave us a grant to do, and I can't remember whether that was oxygenators or whether that was increased efficient pumps or something, but,
okay.
yeah.
All right.
SCADA system or something. I don't know what that was.
All right, so I'll talk to Chris. I'll call Chris Ryan and see what his thoughts were on this. But keep in mind when we look at the sewer budget that a payment for borrowing for either the chemical feed or headworks is not included in it yet. Because if we only do the
Because it's not
chemical feed,
established,
we're
then-
not going to be borrowing money. That was going to be used out of surplus funds and in the sewer. So it was really going to be, okay, so maybe after I tell you about the budget for the sewer, you guys might say,
We'll borrow money anyway.
or we might say, don't borrow money. 'Cause-
Oh, was that, yeah.
Okay, so the sewer budget, I didn't use the same theory at this point of budgeting for depreciation. I kept everything the same as the way it's been budgeted in the past. Because at this point right now, we really can't afford anything more as far as putting away more than the 10,000 that we normally have, which we're not really putting away because we're spending
We
something
can't
anyway.
afford it because we're not charging enough.
Right.
Yeah.
So if we present this budget, which you can see in the user fees, we would need $146,000, $146,700 to sustain this budget. We're up about 2%.
Because our actual currently is 136, almost
Yeah.
137.
Yeah, the Simon's operation contract goes up, the cost of living each year. So, and its minimum is 3%, so I added 3% to that. And then, what else was up? Oh, I added a little bit more in maintenance because it's costing us more than the 7,000 that we thought we were spending normally. And those were the two things I think that kind of went up. So with the rates that we have right now in the sewer, we are going to have to increase rates just to cover this year. We haven't done that yet. It went up last year and the rates were never increased.
The expense went up and the rates were never increased.
Yeah.
Right. When was the last time we did increase rates?
I didn't check to see what it's been a few years.
It's been a while, hasn't it? Yeah.
So in order to cover the increase to the rates is around $11.50 per ERU per quarter. So that's
That's
40
the increase.
per year. Yeah,
And what's it currently cost for an ERU?
it is $344 a year. It's 86 a quarter.
So it's a pretty significant increase. It's an 8% increase.
Yeah. So and then going and trying to use the theory of putting some depreciation in there, we were talking big increase.
13%. Yeah.
But that's another thing that we're going to work on, is going through the sewer fund. You know, who's connected that, you know, make sure, I mean, we really need to go through each account and go and make sure that the billing process is,
The number of
Yeah.
ERUs are correct,
Yeah.
things like that. And you can base that accurately on the water metered water.
yeah, I don't know. I just still haven't wrapped my head completely around all of it.
Well, I think that's the theory.
That is the
you
theory,
can-
yeah.
Yeah, you can see accurately, but whether that's going to help us or harm us in
Yeah.
this reality, we don't know.
Yeah. I mean, and in talking about future, I mean, this is just trying to get through this year and make sure we're getting enough, you know, like I said, on paper, right now, with the depreciation, we're losing about 60,000 a year on that. That's the operating, you know, you take the 51,000, we're still short 10 in the operating. So, I mean, some of that had to do with those increased maintenance costs that came.
We're not,
Which-
the system gets older, it's going to demand.
Exactly, those don't seem to be going away.
Those
Right.
figures, those trends aren't going
Right.
to alter.
Right.
This is not a for-profit, therefore, you know, I mean, we basically have got to charge what it costs to run it.
To run it,
You know,
right.
when it's a small system, you have to charge more too, because you only have so
Now,
many users,
if
you
we
know.
can make that fair and equitable by a
Right.
closer examination of the rates, the ERUs, how it's dispersed, and
Right.
you know, who's paying what
Right.
for it, that is, you know, is fair.
Right, so that's why in this budget
Suggesting
year,
that by being fair, it's going to cost less.
yeah, I mean, so that's why in this budget year, my thought process was I really want to save some money by starting to budget depreciation, but I don't think, I mean, it could be a significant, we already need to increase it just to cover what we're doing now.
Right.
And until we examine it, I just don't feel comfortable with saying,
Right, and that's
Lot-
already
yeah.
an over 10% increase, so,
Yeah.
yeah.
I mean, so unless, you know, I need to find out about this capital and what a payment would be and what the interest would be. That would be the only other thing I would need to add to this.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's what, you know, any sense of how our sewer rates compare to
I did look
other
today.
municipalities?
I did look, the last survey that was done was in 2008. Comparable sized water systems, it was hard to find one that was comparable water and sewer system. The closest I got were, was it Searsburg I said, Laura? I can't remember. There was a couple of them. They were charging $500 a year.
Yeah.
And but they had very few users. You know, it might have been like 80 compared to our 107 or whatever it is. I don't, you know, so.
We've got more, right, and we probably have an older system than,
Yeah.
This was
So-
built in what, we started this in 76, so.
It's 30 plus years.
76, I would say, so.
No,
But then
and the problem
some of
is
them
with
were
that,
$350 a year, some were $4. So we're, you know, we're in the range, but
Scott's right, I mean, we can't fund this from elsewhere, this needs to be self-sustaining, and I think that ultimately it needs to build some surplus too, so we have to, you know, maybe we look
Yeah.
at
I mean, the very fact that
Yeah, exactly.
we're paying,
and
you
those
know,
ones
a quarter of the budget
Comes out of the general fund for,
already.
you know, already taxpayers who are not, you know, part of the system.
right. And that's I have in the back of my mind another town that dealt with this recently where they hadn't saved, then they had to bond again, and then they had to go to the general population, and it was voted down. We're not paying for it, we don't use it, we're not paying for it.
Right.
So, what all that did was just increase that rate for the users by, you know, a huge jump.
Yeah.
So I'm not suggesting that we do it right now.
Well, I think if we start to look at it
raise the rates to cover what we have.
We should probably raise the rates to cover what we have, but we also probably ought to, you know, basically announce that, you know, over the next 5 years, there's going to be an X amount per year because that's what we have to do.
Yeah, I agree.
You know?
Yep. Yep, so I may come back after I find out about this capital, you know, that process and add a little bit more. We may, I don't think we should do any rate increase tonight, but it needs to be done before the next bill. Because I need to make sure that I know what that number is if we're gonna add a payment in there. I'd hate to raise it once and then.
Put together a proposal about it.
Yeah. It would probably be when do we do the billing for?
After on that.
January 1st.
The next meeting, we'll have that.
Okay.
Are we meeting on the 19th?
We don't have much to do between now and then.
Okay, I will do that.
Christmas Eve, you don't mind working on Christmas Eve.
We're closed, right, Laura? We put the sign up, it's
Right, I
official.
know, right. Didn't we actually give you a raise? That was, made that official.
He wasn't. What? You gave him Christmas Eve?
Yeah, well, we said, you know, it looks like nothing's happening.
So that's where we are with water and sewer.
Oh, boy.
Well, the water system looks great.
Well, I just shut it off for the holidays.
No, I mean, the problem with the sewer system too is that at some point, not, you know, I mean, even if it's 20 years down the road, we're going to have to basically rebuild the whole system.
Yeah.
Someday. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, so.
Yeah. So, you know, the more we can put aside and plan, I mean, that's why we depreciate it, that's why we
Right.
go through that process.
Right.
And, you know, hopefully in the next 6 months to a year, we can get a better handle on the smaller things that need replacement on a regular schedule. Instead of looking at it as $1 million system, let's break it into the smaller things and get those on some type of plan to replace those so that when we're talking about replacement, we're, you know, and that will save on the huge expense all at once. So that's the plan. That's my goal. There's an updated financial report in there. That's with everything that we paid warrants. Did Anita do that? Everything through today. There's a couple line items in the highway that are a little bit over. Brian's been coming in and him and I are going over the highway budget so that he can learn what's going on and where he needs to be careful and
We could probably remove board and road assessment as.
yeah, there's some
line
things
item.
on there that I can delete. But there's nothing out of the ordinary that I can, we're almost, hopefully, not the next meeting, but the meeting in January, I can give you guys a final on the sidewalk. We should be getting the balance of that money in the next week.
And the general impression is that people are happy with it.
Yes. Did I tell you about the lady that came in for cutting meadows?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was good. That made us feel good.
Yeah, I mean, I think a discussion that you may have already been having this discussion, but that Brian should be thinking about how he's going to approach, because it's a whole different maintenance thing now. Because we used to be able to sort of say, well, we can maintain it, so we're not going to, but now we can't really say that,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah, I know that
So
they've
he's
taken
coming-
it
he's
out there
prepared for
to,
that.
they have been out in the tractor on the sidewalk already,
To
making
make
sure that it,
it'll
yeah.
do what it's
Yeah,
supposed to.
so,
It doesn't fall out.
Doesn't shoot up.
where I have the warrants, and I'll just quickly, there's also an email in there about, it's the update on the gravel pit. It's still, we're waiting for our Act 250 hearing. That just gives, the email gives a little more detail as to where we're at. The solar committee is almost ready to bring you guys the RFP that they have come up with. We'll be hearing from them shortly. I'm still waiting to hear from Kata and Howard on the wastewater thing. We've gone ahead, I talked to Mark Simon the other day, and Chris Hayes has talked to a person about the actual, you know, what the prices are for our building. If we were to hire somebody to do the slab and then the building to come in. So I'm still just waiting to see what Tatum and Howard give me. And I was told a week ago I would get it by the end of the week, and I haven't seen it yet, so I'll get after him again.
And what is the general impression of what a building's gonna cost from?
About 35,000.
So somebody was gonna really,
Yeah. I mean, that includes the electrical and all, I mean, so it's,
the bid we got, bids we got, or 35 includes the electric.
it does, yes.
Right, no, that's what
Yeah.
I'm saying. So somebody was gonna just whack us.
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah, I don't know where they certainly were.
It was a Swiss watch as opposed to a cigarette.
I guess, yeah.
I mean, I did make sure that Chris understands that we can't just order from one supply. We need to get some competitive
Put it out
quotes.
to bid.
Yeah, I mean,
But
yeah, because he's ready for me to order from this company, so I told him we need to just hold off for a little bit, but,
But if that's the case, we may come up with one for 27, which
yeah,
would be great.
yeah. I think it's gonna be hard to, not many people are making those buildings.
No, I'm sure, no, I mean,
Brian said he'd do it for 20.
I was going to say, what makes that building that?
Because it's a fiberglass building, right? So I think, yeah.
Right, I mean, all of these components are out there, somebody knocked together
Well,
something.
yeah, really.
What up?
Plenty of-
Maybe, huh?
Sure. Time on the computer, I'm sure I can find all the parts.
The sidewalk, we're in the process of working on the transportation alternative grant. We met last week, I think it was. I don't know, the weeks are just blending
It's a little
together.
scary.
And Dirk came down, Landmark representatives came, Matt Mann was here, Pip was here, and Landmark is doing a lot of the narrative writing of the grant for us. Working with Dirk, and we're gonna have another meeting next week to make sure that we're all on the same page, and that grant application is due January 19th. So. I just wanted to just touch base with you guys about the sheriff's contract. I met last night, I went to the Westminster Select Board meeting. Melissa was there, Keith was there, Keith Clark, and just pitched the idea of a shared contract to them before we go any further with numbers. We decided that, do they even want to do this? They're thinking about it. The numbers came in at, so what it would be is a full-time person, which would be Melissa, a part-time person for 30 hours. So the shared would be
30 hours
a week.
Week?
Yeah. So the two towns would get 35 hours a week.
What do they currently use?
They have a small, I don't know if it's 10 hours. It's not much. It's so much.
It's roughly
What we do like-
similar to what we
Yeah.
used to do, right? I think that's what we
Yeah.
keep saying.
So they'd be looking at a huge increase also.
Yeah.
Huh.
So it ended up being around $102,000 was the entire contract, so that would be 50 something a piece. So,
Which is better than
yeah.
60 plus, closer to 70.
Which the benefits, if Westminster was to team up with us, because this part-time person, he would be doing a lot of traffic.
We'd see more traffic
Stuff.
control in town.
Melissa would then do a lot of what she does now
Right.
For both towns.
for both towns.
Huh. That could work out well.
Yeah, so they had their budget meeting after I left, and they did talk about it a little bit, and then they were going to get back to me and Keith and see, you know, if they want to try to. They got a big increase up there this year, so we're concerned about adding some more. So we're working on that.
Tell those select board members to get some. Don't you have some influence there?
I do. I live with one of them, but you're listening. So that's where we're. Oh, the insurance. I mentioned the insurance at the last meeting. I did talk to Vermont Leagues of Cities and Towns, and they would love to work with us, but he doesn't understand. The last time they sent a bid or a quote to us, it came in at like $18,000 more than what the other company is giving us. And he said that he doesn't understand why, because that's not the way it is in other towns. So when we talked today, he said for us to do a comprehensive look through and make sure,
Apples to apples.
yeah, it would take some time. So I suggested to him that I think we should go ahead and sign, because we run out December 31st. Sign the renewal with the company that we're with now. Then he is going to contact me after the new year to sit down with me to make sure there's not something that we're missing in our coverage. And he said, you may just be getting a really good price. I don't know. So I'm going to sign that paperwork and get the renewal going so that we don't lose any, have a gap.
Are we're bound for a year? Is that the deal?
I don't know that we're bound for a year. Is that? Oh, maybe.
I'm not sure that you can't cancel it just to do any other policy.
Yeah. I can find that out, but even still, it'll give us some time to, you know, and he actually, the guy from the league actually was the one that, it wasn't Wade, it was somebody else, but he actually was the one that suggested that. He's like, we can give you a quick quote, but he said, I know it's going to come in higher. So, maybe we're just getting a good deal. I don't know. So I just wanted to let you guys know that I was going to sign that paperwork.
That's true.
Yeah. And we opted out of terrorism insurance, Josh. Are you okay with that?
We had.
Yes, I'm okay with that. I mean, I actually have this issue because of a property that I own that I'm working on, and they wouldn't give me insurance unless I signed a terrorism waiver on it. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay.
Where are you getting your subs from?
But you know, the only thing that occurred to me is, you know, is Yankee susceptible to a terrorist attack, and how would that affect us? You know, that was the only thing I could think of that was like, well, that would. So I waived it on my property.
Yeah. There is one portion of the terrorist insurance that we can't waive. It's mandatory. I can't remember exactly what it was, but the other one we could, so that, and it covers us if we get sued by anybody for a terrorist attack on the town.
I think I'm all right with that.
Okay.
Hopefully we won't regret it.
Chance we'll have to take. Just think of all that Homeland Security money we could get.
I'm hoping that if there is something that happens, we will respond to it properly and nobody will sue us anyway. Was that all I had? I don't know. I think so. So next week again at 5:30?
Next Wednesday, yeah.
Are we adjourned?
We're adjourned.